Yes, I think we're live. Well, good evening. Hi. It's just lovely to see so many of you here already. Welcome. And tonight, as you know, well, you know who I am. But for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm astrologer and life coach Penny Dix. And I've had a kind of a life as a psychotherapist, and I have learned astrology alongside that for over 30 years. So my history of astrology goes back a long way, and various teachers have popped up at various times to teach and guide me. And for that, I'm really grateful. And I think it's an interesting thing with astrology, because I think with a lot of these more esoteric sciences, shall we call it that, the teacher will find you, astrology will find you, and you will find that it pulls you in. And certainly that was my experience, that once I found astrology, that was it. I was lost. I just had to allow myself to immerse myself into this wonderful world of the solar system, of the astronomy, of the galaxy, of the Milky Way. It's been an amazing journey to get to this point. Hello, everybody. Hello, Annabelle Sapphire. I hope you're feeling a little bit better. Hi, Ramona. Good to see you here. And I can see some other names that look familiar. Hello, everybody. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do tonight, because I'm going to try and keep this particular video. Just let me get that in a better position. I'm going to try and, oh no, that's wrong. I'm going to try and keep this video to, uh, if it goes up to an hour, so be it. But I'd quite like it to not go up to 2 hours, like I did on Wednesday with the live November. I can't believe I talked for 2 hours. But this is me. I just find lots to say. So listen, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the history of the planet Saturn. I'm going to talk about Saturn in Pisces. I'm going to bring in, obviously, the astrology of what is currently happening with Saturn in Pisces, and the fact that today, after a long period of being retrograde, it goes direct. And then in the second half of this video, there's a little insect flying around me. In the second half of this video, I'm going to go briefly through each individual zodiac sign so that you know which part of the chart for rising sign or sun sign you can expect this energy to be playing out, which I think you'll find super helpful. So let's get on with it. So, hi, Annabelle. You're getting there slowly, and your Saturn is in Cancer. That's quite challenging, but we'll come to that later. Let's just look a little bit about the mythology of Saturn. Do any of you know much about Saturn? And how are you feeling today with the fact that Saturn is going direct? Have you noticed any shift in energies? Do let me know in the chat. Hello from New York. Hello from Gozo. And time flies, Laurie. Yes, when you're having fun. Hi, yeah. Hi, Laurie. You're still there. It's good to see you again. Had a lovely chat with Laurie earlier today. That's quite difficult to say. Laurie earlier today. Anyway, we had a lovely chat and a lovely session. And it was just a really quite extraordinary session, wasn't it, Laurie? But anyway, look, Saturn was named after the Roman god of agriculture. And according to myth, Saturn, the god Saturn, introduced agriculture to the people by teaching them how to farm the land. Now, I think that in itself is quite interesting because Saturn is about restriction, discipline, and using what you have with you in the present to make it work for you in the future. So the fact that it was the god of how to use the agricultural land, I think is very interesting. Saturn was also the Roman god of time. And this is perhaps because as he was the slowest planet that went round the sun at this time in history, because the other outer planets had not yet been discovered, he was known as the god of time. And so this is why Saturn is known as the god of time. Also, the rings of Saturn, and there are approximately about 7 rings, and Saturn has an enormous amount of moons, but I forget how many. But Saturn's rings are why we get this sense with Saturn of boundaries. So boundaries are all about Saturn: containment, restriction, austerity. Now, for example, tonight, if I was entertaining you all in my home, I would have maybe just a couple of lights on. If it was cold, I wouldn't have the fire on. If it was warm, I wouldn't have the air conditioning on. To get across the meaning of Saturn, because Saturn is limited. It does not go in for excess. It does not make a fuss. So it is quite interesting how Saturn gets this kind of reputation as being the planet of limitation, not only from the rings that go around Saturn, but also because of Saturn's kind of coldness. In general, we have to work with what we've got. This was why he was the god of agriculture. So wherever you were on the planet, you had to work with what you've got. Now, in Greek mythology, of course, Saturn was personified as Kronos, also known as the god of time. And with the Greek mythology, it is slightly more depressing because it kind of represents this relentless passing of time, the challenges of aging. However, there's a gift because it always brings the gift of wisdom and maturity that we gain through experience. So that when we have our Saturn return, our first Saturn return, which is at about the age of 28, 27, 28, 29, is often the toughest. We can lose someone at that age, or we have a baby that disrupts our life, or we get married, which disrupts our life. We move house, which disrupts our life. We change careers, but there will usually be a pattern that is set on our first Saturn return that sets the tone for how we can expect the next kind of 29, 30 years to unfold. And then when we get our second Saturn return, when we are in our late 50s, at 58, 59, again, we can often experience loss. This can often be the age that we lose a parent or both parents, or there will be some dramatic change. We lose our career, or we leave our work, or a child leaves home, or a child gets married, or we become grandparents, there'll always be some kind of life-changing event that makes us aware of the passage of time. And that can be quite difficult for all of us. So how do we work with Saturn energy in the present? Because in the sign of Pisces, Pisces is not an easy sign for Saturn to be in. It's what is known as Saturn is debilitated in the sign of Pisces, meaning that Saturn's abilities and qualities, if you like, are hindered from fully expressing themselves. So it's kind of experienced more as punishing and difficult and challenging. So we have to remember that. And Saturn is also known as the god of karma, the dweller on the threshold. And karma, of course, is a kind of state that certainly in Vedic astrology and in the Indian cultures is much more part of their way of life. In our Western astrology, it's not something we're so aware of. So what do we learn of Saturn in Pisces? Saturn wants to be in a sign where it can use its energy and flex its powers. In Pisces, my oceans of emotions, is all over the place. So, of course, Saturn is not very comfortable in Pisces. And we've got Saturn here. Saturn moved in to Pisces on March the 3rd to the 7th this year, 2023, and does not move into Aries until February the 13th, 2026. So we still have quite a long time of this energy, and some of you will be experiencing Saturn returns. So if you have, if you have your natal Saturn in Pisces, you might be 28, 29 or 58, 59, and you'll be experiencing your Saturn return, which can be life-changing. And what of the astrology today? Because if we look at the chart of today, of Saturn, how it is in the skies as it moved direct in Pisces, the only planet it is making an aspect to, well, it isn't a planet. It's making an aspect to an asteroid, which I find quite interesting, which is called Vesta. Now, Vesta is about harvest. It's about the hearth and the home. Vesta was a Roman goddess. Vesta was the goddess in the temple who was in charge of what was known as the Vestal Virgins. And yet, interestingly, they weren't virgins, because the Vestal Virgins had the role of accommodating the sexual needs of the high priests of the Roman temples. And Vesta herself was the chief kind of Vestal Virgin in this sense. Hi, Sue. Hi, Sue in England, just seen you. And so it's quite interesting that Saturn is making a trine aspect. And so I think with this trine aspect, Saturn is bringing in the qualities of we can actually begin now to gain the benefits of what we've perhaps sacrificed. You have to look back over this year over the months of this last year and think about what sacrifices you've made. Who has made sacrifices on your behalf? Because now with Saturn going direct, you can start to harvest what has been made available to you. And this can be on an energetic and an emotional level. So I'm missing a lot of what is going on in the chat. And just to let you know, I have not started yet with the individual signs. It'll be a little bit further on, probably about, well, another 10 minutes or so before I get to the signs. But I'm just going through the energy of today because this is super important, because it sets the tone for how the next few months are going to be. And we all need to know that, because the energy of November is tricky. The energy of the next the next couple of weeks is very tricky, because what we have coming up with the new moon in Scorpio, which I'm going to do a pre-recorded video about, and that'll be out sometime next week. And in that, I will do all your individual zodiac signs. But the new moon is in Scorpio. But the new moon in Scorpio is conjunct Mars. Mars in Scorpio, the sign it rules. This is super important because Mars, the god of war, the god of energy, the god of assertion, the god of secrets revealed in the sign of Scorpio, is in opposition to Uranus in Taurus, the planet of shocks, of surprises, of the unexpected. I know we have already seen some appalling atrocities in the last couple of weeks throughout the war-torn areas of our planet. And I'm not going to dwell on it because we all know what is going on. We know what we need to do. We know we need to send, as spiritual beings of light, we need to send positive strength and healing, love, and common sense to these parts of the world. But what we have to be prepared for is that Mars opposite Uranus over the next kind of 2 weeks, let's say, brings knee-jerk reactions. That's in the world in general and in your own lives. Be so super careful to respond to situations in your own lives over the next couple of weeks. Be really careful how you take in shocks and difficulties in your own lives, let alone what might be happening on the world stage. But let's hope that that is not what we're going to see. How does Saturn play a part in this? Saturn going direct in Pisces is really imploring us to use common sense in everything we do, whether that's conveying it to world leaders or whether it's conveying it to each and every one of us individually. We have to take charge of our own lives, be responsible for our own direction. We have to take responsibility for our actions. And as you know, and as I know, the world needs to take responsibility and be accountable for what we have allowed collectively to unfold in general. And I'm not going to dwell on it, as you know. Yes, doves of peace. Absolutely. Ariana. Lovely to see you here again, Ariana. So thank you, Anna. Oh, I'm so super sensitive, aren't I? I see one small little comment and I go, oh dear, I better rush. I'm not going to rush. I'm going to take my time. Hey, if no one likes my slow speed, that's the way it is. And you know what? We're talking about Saturn. Saturn is about taking things slowly, one step at a time, one thought at a time. And, you know, the problem with a lot of the world leaders is that I think everything happens so fast for them that they don't actually get a chance to stand back and reflect on how their decisions impact and affect everybody else. And what happens is us, the people, are the ones that bear the brunt of what gets decided by very, very tired, exhausted people in power. That's not good. They need to listen to my video tonight, and they need to slow down and respond to the situations that are unfolding in the world. This is all Saturn talk. Don't think for any moment I've drifted off Saturn. I'm absolutely with Saturn spot on. Because Saturn direct in Pisces, Saturn is uncomfortable in Pisces. It does not like all this oceans of emotions and this no boundaries. It wants to bring in some common sense. You know, if you think of the sign of Pisces, and I'm not making any apologies to Pisces subjects, but sometimes you're all over the place. And it's not that you aren't super, super lovely, lovely, super people, but sometimes you spread yourself too thinly. Listen, I have a Pisces moon. I know what it's like to be Pisces. It's like sometimes a friend said to me yesterday, because she's helping me on my plan to lose weight. And we check in every morning and she's being super supportive. And I tell her how much I weigh and she says, look at your portion control and all of that. She's being Saturn to my Pisces moon. And I've got Saturn coming up to conjunct my moon. But what she says is, because she has a Piscean in her family, is, I don't know, she goes, you Pisces have no on-off switch. It's either on with everything or off with everything, but very rarely off. It's always on. And that's what happens to me when I'm trying to manage my intake of food, quite frankly. I'm trying to reduce my portions, you know, little and often. But I digress, as I always do, because that's what I do. And I'd like to know if Laurie, if you're still watching, if I could mention what happened in our session today with the picture, because I think that was super important. If you wish to keep it private, absolutely fine. It will go no further. I can. Thank you, Laurie. I had a wonderful session with a wonderful lady today who's in the chat called Laurie Smith. Whilst we were talking, first of all, I want to mention Carl Gustav Jung, who was the great founder and father, along with Sigmund Freud, of psychoanalytic psychotherapy. I trained in Jung, Melanie Klein, and Sigmund Freud. That was my basic psychotherapy training. Now, Jung used to say, whatever happens in a session, whether as soon as the client enters the room and as soon everything in between until they leave is part of that session. Whilst Laurie and I are having our discussion and I'm going through her chart and we're chattering away and we're having a very interesting discussion and some extraordinary energies around, which I might refer to a bit later because mind-blowing. Anyway, suddenly I heard this crash, crash, bang, and I said, "What's that?" I thought perhaps someone had walked into the room. In fact, I thought perhaps a dog had entered the room because she kind of went and looked down and touched something. And I said, what was it? Is it a dog or one of your family walking in? She said, no. A picture hanging on my wall just fell down. And it's been there for a long, long time. And I said, has this happened before? She said, no. So I said to Laurie, then in some way, this is a meaningful coincidence. What it is about, maybe we don't know yet. And maybe it's just privately for Laurie to know about. And we have to respect that. But it was the most extraordinary experience. Now, Jung would take that and he would look at it, and what he would do is analyze what the painting or the picture was about. How does that resonate with the client? What does it mean for the client? What is the emotion, the connection between the client and the picture? And actually, we didn't go into it in any great depth. So that's just for Laurie to think about. And this is what I mean about synchronicity and about respecting and honoring what the extraordinary energies do. And I want to recommend at this point, but I'm not going to go into it in very deep depth. But as you know, I love the astrologer Pam Gregory, English astrologer. She, in the last 2 or 3 days, has done a wonderful interview with the most wonderful, wonderful lady. And I just want to find her name because I can't remember. And I will find it and I will find it. Okay. She did an interview with a lady called Nancy Rebecca. And it's just called Blue Light Beings. I watched this and my jaw dropped because everything they discussed has been happening to me for quite a while and continues to happen to me. That's all I'm going to say. You have to watch the video to find out what I'm talking about, because I don't think I'm ready to start bringing it all out from my perspective. But already it's had 50K views. How about that? This could get up to 100,000. Awesome, awesome video. Pam, if you ever watch me, you probably don't because you don't get time, but oh my God, what an amazing, amazing astrologer you are. What a wonderful interview and what a wonderful lady Nancy Rebecca is. So I just want to give that to you because it is really worth watching. So let's come back to the astrology of today and to Saturn, because this is what this video is about. And in about 2 minutes, I'm going to start looking at your individual signs, zodiac signs in each sign. Now, Jerry, the lovely, lovely Jerry, may not have time to timestamp them before Monday. He is hugely grateful to the lovely people who timestamped November's astrology. And he says, thank you from the depths of his heart. And even though they may not have been absolutely spot on, it was perfect. Thank you so much. And so if anyone wants to timestamp when I get to the astrology today, then the zodiac signs today, then I'm absolutely happy for you to do that. And so if we look at the chart of today, I want to say one thing which I think is really important. The rising sign of this chart, according to universal time. Now, I take universal time, not just because I live in Europe and in Malta, but, I'm not in the UK, which is universal time, but because universal time is a kind of general accepted kind of point in time for the planet and for the timing of all our clocks from GMT and Greenwich Mean Time. That is where the atomic kind of clock data is housed at Greenwich, across the river from in London. The rising sign for this chart is Sagittarius. This for me is about reaching for the stars. So Saturn is going direct when there is an ascendant that is full of hope. The cusp of the second house is just a degree apart from the galactic center. Whatever else happens over the next few weeks, please know we are being looked after. We are being looked after by these intelligent light beings, and I'm not woo-woo, la-di-da-di-da, all of that stuff. It's just not me. But because I'm having personal experience of it all now, I'm so grounded as a Taurus and fixed. It's just important, it's important to let you know, because I have to find the courage to let this part of me come through, because I know these teachers, these light teachers, want to use me. And I have to get my ego out the way. I have to get my narcissism out the way. And I have to get myself out the way and listen to what I'm being asked to do. So I'm telling you that whatever might happen over the next few weeks, we will not have lost that one thing that was in Pandora's box, hope. So even though when Pandora opened the box, pestilence, diseases, murder, horrible stuff, war, famine escaped from Pandora's box, hope was also there, and hope escaped as well. So hope is free. Hope is there. And what we all have to do is turn hope into faith. Faith that we can use our collective conscious energy to just raise our energy up a few gears to lift the rest of humanity up to a level that helps the collective, helps the parts of humanity that are not aware. And it only takes a small percentage. I always remember Neil Donald Walsh talking about this, the author of all the Conversations with God books. He said there's a tipping point. It just takes that something like 2% of mankind, of humankind, not mankind, humankind, to raise their consciousness to that level where we see the bigger picture, where we are connected with the galactic center. And the rest of human consciousness will elevate itself. I really do strongly believe that. We may go through the dark before we get fully into the light. That often happens, but what we've got to do is not lose faith. Now, what else do I see in this chart before I move on to your individual signs? Because that's right, the moon in Cancer in this chart is in opposition to Pluto. So the moon in Cancer opposite Pluto again is pulling these difficult energies apart. And it's kind of like, oh God, sometimes it's ripping our guts out. The feeling and emotion that some of us will feel is just this, it's this Pisces ocean of emotion that we have to be careful we don't drown in. Now, the positive of this is that Saturn is now moving forwards, although it will remain stationary at this point for a couple of weeks or so before it starts to creep forward by a few minutes. But we are stationary at least. We are standing still. We can breathe. We have time. And Saturn doesn't normally give us time. But there's a little window of opportunity here where we can just grab a little bit of time. Now, Pluto, remember, is direct as well. And Pluto, in opposition to the moon in this chart, is just asking us to be mindful. Mindful that we do not get caught in depression, negativity, into dark thoughts, whether that's about our own lives or about what happens in the world. Keep your energy high. When I saw the lovely Laurie this afternoon, we were talking about Reiki. A lot of you out there are Reiki practitioners. Whether you're Reiki 1, Reiki 2, Reiki 3, it really doesn't matter. Send Reiki to the future. Send Reiki, positive healing thoughts, to your future selves and to the future selves of humanity. That is a way to manage what is unfolding. I hope some of this really, really makes sense. Now, I am going to go on to your individual signs because I'm determined to try and keep this not as long as the last video. So for those of you that are doing timestamps, here we go. This is the first one. Aries. And so this is for the sun in Aries or for the rising sign in Aries. It's in your 12th house. Now, you know, Aries, with the 12th house, this is about the inner you. This is about the work you are having to do on yourself. I know it's tiresome, Aries. I know you've had enough of it. But listen, my loves, Saturn is really trying to bring the gift of learning and awareness. And Saturn will move on to your ascendant in 18 months, 2 years' time. And wow, you're going to have changed so much. You will have grown so much. So any of the delays that you're experiencing in your lives, Aries, you know what? Embrace them. Say to Saturn, bring it on. Bring it on, baby. What have you got to teach me this time? That way, you make friends with Saturn. The wonderful follower, Nina, who I don't know whether she's watching this, but she might watch it later, who gave me that wonderful gift of reminding me that Saturn is the backbone. Saturn is this spine standing strong, the backbone of our lives. Remember to, Aries, look at how much you've already survived and know that everything that you may currently be going through is making that backbone stronger so that you can stand up proud, Aries, and really move forward to embrace the next part of your life. Let's move on to Taurus. Taurus, for you, my loves, it's in your 11th house. Now, the 11th house, of course, is the community at large. It's about hopes and wishes, dreams, the things we'd like to fulfill, the projects we'd like to launch. Things have perhaps been a bit caught up in this area, a bit slowed down. It's been a little bit difficult to get things off the ground. It's like you're here, you're there, you're everywhere. There's so much that needs your attention and you can't quite keep up. I think Saturn going direct is going to give you a little bit of a kind of impetus to use your backbone in a stronger way emotionally in your life in general, so that you'll be able to be a little bit more organized and boundaried about the kind of different avenues you've got open for what you're working on and how you can get the best out of using a timetable. You really need to get a timetable in place for yourselves, Taurus, so that you have some control over what's going on. Let's move on to Gemini. Gemini, for you, my loves, it's in your 10th house of career, what your passion is. This can be where you are a little bit unboundaried, Gemini, because it is Pisces. You think, well, I've left that position or that job. What do I want to do now? Where do I want to go now? Or should I actually try something completely different? Please, Gemini, you need to get some of that Saturn kind of sense of responsibility and boundaries into directing your life and collating your energies into one thing so that you gain the maximum benefits of Saturn in this part of your chart, because Saturn can really help you make commitments to projects and, even if you're retired, hobbies, anything that you're passionate about. It can help you commit to doing something that you love, maybe that uses your mind, that is creative in some way, that involves, I don't know, just dreaming something into existence. Use that energy to really, really work positively with it. Let's move on to Cancer. In the 9th house of higher learning, higher education. This is also about long distance travel. It's also the house of spirituality. And it's an interesting one, this, for you, Cancer, because of course, this is a water house because it's Pisces and you're a water sign. And the moon is your ruler and the moon is in your sign today. So you have this kind of dichotomy, Cancer. You have dreams, hopes, wishes. It's like there might be an adult learning course that you want to pursue. There might be a new avenue to a career that you've left on one side that you would like to explore. Let's pretend or imagine you love astrology and you're thinking of working more with astrology. You might be looking at it and feeling overwhelmed by the amount of information that you would have to learn. Cancer, it's never too late. It's never too late to embrace something new and really bring it into your life. And, it doesn't matter when we start these things, whatever it is, because we will always learn something that makes us think, wow, I didn't know that. Whoa. It was like when I was doing my research today and reading up about Vesta and reminding myself about the Vestal Virgins, which I'd kind of knew but kind of forgotten, or at least it had gone to the back of my mind. And so I love it when I go back and reread all these things. So Cancer, use that energy, use that lovely Pisces energy in this 9th house of yours to explore also your intuitive abilities, your psychic abilities. Saturn going forward can really give you structure to understanding and working with any of your psychic or clairvoyant or mediumship abilities. So be aware of that. Now let's move on to Leo, and then I will have a little look at some of the chat because I can see it's so really moving up there. So Leo, this is in your 8th house. This can be quite a difficult placement, Leo, because Pisces in the 8th house, with Pisces being a house that is ruled by Neptune, but also the 8th house is a Scorpio house by Zodiac. So it's the house of sex, death, birth, endings, beginnings, transformation. So to have Pisces here means that there is something about the energy of, and the fear, I think, of death that Leo can experience with Saturn in Pisces, especially if you have any personal planets here, like your sun or moon or Venus or Mars. But, a moon in Pisces in the 8th can be quite daunting. One can be fearful of and actually go through all those fantasies of, oh, what's that? Is that something wrong with me? Or what's my heart doing? I better take my pulse. Should I take my blood pressure? Am I okay? Those are the kind of things that can manifest with a kind of 8th house Pisces. So be aware that Saturn going direct is going to give you some kind of handle on that. You're going to find it easier to contain these feelings that can overwhelm you and get out of control, so that you can really work with the energy. And what I want to say, which I haven't said yet, which I meant to say in the beginning, is with Saturn transits, ultimately, if we do the work that Saturn is asking us to do, and this is for every zodiac sign, we get the gift of Saturn. I'll say it again at the end when I've gone through all the zodiac signs, because I think it's super important for you all to know that Saturn is not all doom and gloom. There is the golden age of Saturn, the kind of glorious golden age, the age of Kronos, when we come out into the light, and the golden years where we experience the gifts that Saturn brings us. So Leo, do not despair with any of your planets in the 8th house Pisces. It will not be awful for you, because I think Saturn going direct is going to help curb any of those kind of imaginative fears that may have come up. So let's move on to Virgo, because Virgo, of course, it's in your 7th house of significant relationships. This can be your life partner. This can be your soulmate, your twin flame, even if you don't live with them. Sometimes a soulmate is someone that comes into our life for a small time and doesn't stay for very long. But we know they are our soulmate. And so Saturn here is about putting down roots and making commitments. And it may be, Virgo, that with Saturn going retrograde, it's made you reevaluate a lot of your relationship situations. This can be with close friends as well, if you're single or widowed or divorced. And it could also be to do with business partnerships. The retrograde period has been a time of reevaluation. It's given you a chance to slow down and look at where that particular relationship was headed towards. Now, what's happening with it going direct is you have a chance to renew, heal anything that was damaged. Look at where you want to go from here with significant relationships. Have those really, really important talks with a loved one. I can see what you're saying, Andy. I'll come to that in a minute. And, Virgo, this can also be for those of you that maybe have a new relationship in your lives. This can mean some kind of commitment, especially as Saturn tries or starts to move direct. Let's move on to Libra. Libra, for you, my loves, it's in your 6th house. Now, the 6th house, as we know, is the house of service, charity. It's the house of our day-to-day routine. It's the house of health and small animals as well. So Saturn retrograde may have brought issues up in any of those departments. Health, pets, you could have lost a dear pet, you could have had a health issue that's come up, anything like that. You could have had your whole working routine disrupted. What is happening with Saturn going direct is that it's about renewing, re-looking at, healing. It's bringing in the healing that's needed to any situations that have had their wounds opened and ripped raw. That is how it's really going to help. And before I go on to Scorpio, I just want to answer for all of you Andy Walsh's question, because Andy has asked, she's got Saturn retrograde natally. I've got Saturn retrograde as well. And it's in your 12th house in Virgo. Saturn retrograde natally, what this means is that there is something about the house it rules that we are bringing in karmically from the past. Because Saturn is a planet about timing, about things from the past coming into the present, it can be that we have hangovers from kind of past lives. Now, in the 12th house, Andy, in Virgo, it's probably that you were in service. You were a nurse in a kind of what I'm seeing is a war somewhere, a war zone in the First World War, and you were a kind of Florence Nightingale in one of those awful camps where people were coming in with no limbs and every bits of them blown off. So it can mean something like that, and that those lessons that you've learned in that past life, you bring with you into this life. And to look at that energy again and to help it enhance and really, really kind of grow your current life karmically. So let's see what else we've got going on. You've told you were a witch masquerading as a nurse. You probably were, but you were a good witch. You were definitely using your ideas of herbs and special potions. But let's move on, because we need to move on to Scorpio, because some of you may be waiting patiently for Scorpio. And we need to look at Scorpio because it's in your 5th house. Now, Scorpio, Pisces in the 5th. This is all about your friend circle. It can also be about love affairs. And it may have brought someone into your life that you've had a kind of fancy for, a bit of a flirtation with, if you are in that situation where that can happen. But it kind of didn't happen. It fizzled out. Something may re-emerge with Saturn going direct with that kind of energy, and some kind of commitment can happen in a friendship that has just been a kind of nice friendship where perhaps both of you have been dancing round each other. You can move the relationship into the 7th house of committed relationships with Saturn going direct. Also, remember, the 5th house is about creativity. So this is very much also about, if you felt, Scorpio, somehow at a loss, just kind of your imagination seems a bit blocked. You just don't seem to be able to, I don't know, get your mojo going with your imagination or creativity. Saturn going direct is going to suddenly help you think, I know how I can write this. I know how I can paint this. I know how I can do this in a blog or whatever it is that you are trying to create. It can also be a creative venture for your career or your business or your hobby that you have the sudden kind of magic touch for, that really kind of helps you with that. So that's what I feel is going on for Scorpio. And remember, at the moment, with the sun in your sign, happy birthday, Scorpio. And of course, you do have a new moon in your sign on the 13th, which not only will I do a pre-recorded video about, but I will also do a live new moon stream. And that will be on the 13th of November. But let's move on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, it's in your 4th house of home. Sagittarius, are you yearning for, I don't know, more fluidity at home, more movement, more imagination? Do you feel a bit restricted at home? Is your family making you feel restricted? Are you feeling restricted by circumstances, Sagittarius? It just feels that this is quite challenging for you, this Saturn for you in the 4th house. It's kind of squashing some of your kind of Jupiterian imagination and kind of energy. But with Saturn going direct, hopefully you will have learnt the lessons that Saturn has been trying to bring to you within the structures of home and family. And so you will be able to use Saturn going direct in a positive and structured way. Some of you might literally have been moving home or making significant changes within your living space. That is also something that we can experience with Saturn in the 4th house. So let's move on to Capricorn. Did I say Scorpio in the third, in the fifth? I meant, let me say, I've done Scorpio in the fifth, Sagittarius in the fourth, and now I'm moving on to Capricorn in the third house of communication. It's very easy to get lost, you know. So, hi, Joyce. It's about learning, though. It certainly is. I'll wing it. I'll whinge it. I'll wing it. And right. So let me see. Capricorn in the third. Well, you may have felt a bit restricted about what you can communicate to others, how you can communicate to others, what you can say. There may have been delays with contracts, signing things, getting things moving. Perhaps there's a new position, new job, new hobby that you're trying to launch. There's been some sort of snags and snarl ups for you, Capricorn. But of course, remember, Saturn is your ruling planet. And so it's actually quite confusing for you to have Saturn in Pisces, because it's like you're all over the show and your thinking is all over the show. And I think it's been quite difficult for you, Capricorn, to keep your emotions under control and not not react, because I think maybe you've been reacting rather than responding to situations. And, you know, this is something that is super important about all the energy at the moment. We need to respond to everything that's happening and not react. If you only take one thing from today, respond, don't react. And that goes for everything in our lives. Give yourselves time to think and breathe. It's not easy. It's like we have to break a habit of a lifetime, because we're so used to, since we were kids, reacting when we're told no, or you can't have that, or whatever, that to not react is really hard. But make it an absolute mission to respond, to be that mindful responsiveness, and not reacting. So Capricorn, really that's all I want to say for you, because what I want to move on to is Aquarius in the second house. For you, Aquarius, Saturn in your sign is being quite challenging. And when you had it in your sign, it was difficult, to say the least. But of course, now it's moved into your second house of Pisces. And of course, hot on the heels of Saturn, you're going to have Pluto in your sign. But Saturn in the second house of Pisces has helped you put the brakes on your financial kind of framework and structure. Because I think that when Saturn first came in, you found it a little bit difficult to cope with all the sudden unexpected expenses that were popping up and cropping up all over the place. And Saturn was putting you under stress. Saturn moving direct now is taking a step back to let you get a kind of handle on everything, so that you can get your financial situation. It's like when we use the saying, get your ducks in a row. You can get your ducks in a row, your geese in a row, your kittens in a row, your dogs in a row. You can get everything in a row with this energy, Aquarius. Aquarius, Saturn in your second house is going to be very helpful. There may be some commitments that you're going to make to joint projects with another that are about remunerative benefits. So let's see. Now, finally, bye, Andy. Lovely to see you. You've got to go and pick up one of your little ones. And thank you for being here. Andy. Now let's finally move on to my oceans of emotions, my Pisces. Pisces. Well, of course, it's in your first house. So, yes, it is about you. But Pisces, how are you coping with this energy in your sign? You've had it for a while now. You've had it since the beginning of this year, more or less. And, you know, Pisces, you tend to act before you think. And that's a lovely, lovely kind of, what's the word? Impulsive, wonderful, creative part of you, because you act so intuitively. But with Saturn here, it's been trying to slow you down a bit, trying to hold you back a bit. Now, with Saturn going direct in your sign, it's actually going to free up your energies. And I think you're going to find it easier, Pisces, to balance things out, to put the structures in place that you need to put in place for how you want others to experience you, so that you will say into the mirror, "Who am I, Pisces? Pisces, who are you?" And you'll be able to say, "Wow, well, I've really changed over the last few years. I've grown a lot. I've learned a lot. And hopefully, Pisces, you've not become bitter or resentful, because then Saturn will not be helpful to you." And this is really where I start to bring in, as we finish this reading today, the important news about Saturn. Saturn, when we learn the lessons of Saturn, it gives us the gold. It brings the gifts. If we don't learn the lessons of Saturn, karmically, it can make life very tough for us. And we have to go all the way round the merry-go-round again to get there. Yes, Janice, it took you 69 years to learn that. It's certainly taken me 68 years to get there. And I'm still learning. And, you know, I was saying to Laurie this afternoon, we never stop learning. You know, every year as I get older, something new comes and I learn it. Don't ever think that this is it and you've got there to some plateau of kind of ding, 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 kind of masterhood of guruship. We don't get there. In a sense, we never get there. If you think you're there, remember, you've got in your own way again and you're inflated. So always step back from that and check yourself. And Pisces, I'm saying this because really, yes, I'm just seeing this message from you, Draker. You really wish religion would teach. People would be so much better personally. Yes, so true. And, you know, I think that the next stage for humanity to move towards, to get towards, which maybe hopefully will come as we move towards the age of Aquarius, is where human consciousness will elevate itself enough that all of us, every single person on the planet, we have a collective aha, awakening, understanding that we're all in it together, and that what I do to you, if I do something bad to you, I'm doing it to myself. Everything has a rebound. And until we fully understand that that what we sow, we reap, and we still haven't learned any of the stories of the Old Testament. We've learned none of it. They're so simple. Go back and read the Old Testament. So simple. You know, the New Testament as well. It's so simple. We've complicated and over religiousized it, if that's a word. The butterfly effect. Christine, oh, I love you. How beautiful is that? Yes. When a butterfly flaps its wings in one part of our beautiful planet, it creates a storm, a tsunami on the other side of the planet. And what we need is a collective butterfly effect of human consciousness, so that all of you need to be butterflies. Isn't that a lovely way to kind of start bringing this particular sort of session to a close? Yes, Steve Judd, he talks about this. And, you know, I have such huge respect for all these other astrologers and do my best to credit them for anything that I borrow from them in terms of, you know, and sometimes I'm not aware that I might have heard something and borrowed it. So, you know, I do absolutely give lots of credit to Steve Judd, Pam Gregory, Bracker Goldsmith, Molly McCord. And I came across a lovely lady last night that I must actually tell you about. Just let me find her. And I want to recommend Susan Hopkinson. There you go. She's a bloody good astrologer. Bloody good. Really, really, absolutely interesting. For those of you that are purely into the astrology and learning more about astrology, she's a good one to follow, along with Molly McCord, because I think Molly McCord is very good at explaining the basic astrology, along with that lovely intuitive side that she brings in. And I don't know what I do. I just try and do my best. And that's what I try and do. So, how are we all? Let's just have a look. Imagine if we taught astrology in school. Do you know, I think that would be such a wonderful idea. I've seen someone else say this, and I think it should be encouraged. If astrology was taught in school from year one, you know, one of my first books when I was like 5 or 6 was a wonderful, colourful, hardback children's book that my parents bought me, and it was just called Our Solar System. And in it were lovely pictures of all the planets, of the sun, the earth, the moon, the planets in order, all the way out to Pluto. And I used to sit there night after night, absolutely learning where each planet was: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, etc. I wanted to learn where those planets were. I was fascinated from age 5 by the cosmos and our solar system. And so, you know, it's so important that we look up and look out there and look down there, because we're on an orb hurtling through space at some ridiculously hundreds of miles per second. It's just ridiculously fast how fast we go round our particular sun. And our solar system orbits in the Milky Way round the galactic center. The galactic center is what is kind of spewing out this energy and the connection with these light beings, these light teachers that are all waiting patiently for all of us to tune into them. And on that note, I'm going to leave you. So thank you for joining me. Please remember to check out my website, pennydix.com. And remember, I have a beginner's guide to understanding how to read your natal chart. and that's for sale via my website. And there also is a lovely moon calendar, which Andrea Britton, who does all my beautiful thumbnails, did. And that's also for sale. Oh dear, got hiccups via my website. And I still have a few. Oh dear, really got hiccups now. Maybe I'm being told to shut up now. I've still got a few slots available in December. So please email. And sometimes I get cancellations. The slots I have from America, it's usually 7, 8, 9, or 10 in the morning, because that's my 4 o'clock in the afternoon working westwards across America. So that's how I kind of work it. And for the UK and Europe, then Europe we're the same time zone, and Europe and UK, you're an hour behind me, so I'm an hour ahead. So there we go. Let's thank you once again for being here. You are just awesome. I managed it in an hour 15, not bad. I actually sped it up a bit. Now it's time for me to have my supper. And I wish you all a lovely day if it's the beginning of your day, a pleasant night if you're going to bed, a pleasant evening if, like me, you're just kind of going into your evening. And don't forget, I'll be back tomorrow, same time, to do my weekly overview. And I will bring the tarot in for the signs for the week ahead. And let's hope we don't have any gremlins in YouTube's works tomorrow like we had last week, because that was absolutely awful and it all got cut off, and apparently it was a glitch in YouTube. It was nothing to do with me or my channel. It was everything to do with YouTube. But they didn't apologize, which I think is a bit mean, really. But there we go. Listen, thanks for joining me. You are all awesome. And hopefully I'll see some of you, maybe all of you, tomorrow night for the astrology of the week ahead. Bye for now. Hang on. There we go. Press end.